Thanks for joining us today. I'm Karen Ravago Ballarat. I'm the Director of Alumni Professional Engagement here at the UCSB Alumni Affairs Office. It's day 3 of the expo, so if you missed it, we're doing back-to-back sessions over 2 weeks, so welcome to day 3. Last year we did this in person in LA, and we had planned to be in the Bay Area this fall, and now we're virtual, so thank you so much for joining us, and we're glad to have folks in the room who might not normally get a chance to come to our in-person events. And this actually works out well for us because we had intended for Christopher to be our keynote speaker at the expo in LA last year, and then last minute family obligation came up. So we were excited to be able to welcome him back. Just a few quick housekeeping things. As I mentioned, everyone's on mute. Feel free to turn on your camera if you would like. We'd love it if you could introduce yourself in the chat with your class year, what you majored in, where you're working now, what your health and wellness strategies are during quarantine. Just let us know who is in the room. And then also feel free to type in questions for Christopher into the chat as well, and then we'll be getting to those. So I'm now going to turn it over real quick to Dean Pierre Wiltzius. He's the Dean of Mathematical Life and Physical Sciences here at UCSB, and he will be telling you more about Christopher.
All right, well, thank you very much. And it's wonderful to be here with you, although I would much prefer being with you in person and up close, but unfortunately that's not in the cards right now. So I also had big plans for Christopher, as he was going to be the commencement speaker this past June. But as you probably know, commencement was all virtual, so it did not happen. So Christopher has a rain check, and I will call on him as soon as we will be back live for real commencements, not these virtual ones. And by the way, so if you graduate, I've been the Dean of Mathematical Life and Physical Sciences now for 12 years. I just had my 12-year anniversary. And if you graduated during the last 12 years from environmental studies, I probably did shake your hand during commencement. I walked across the stage to congratulate you to your degree. And even though I'm a physicist myself, I must say I have a particular fondness for the environmental studies program. It is one of my favorite ones because the students are just they're just wonderful. They're just so motivated, and they're so balanced, and also so interdisciplinary, going all the way from the sciences, but to the social sciences and even into the humanities and fine arts. So kind of like the model undergraduate student for a very balanced education. So and Christopher, who is with us today, is of course a wonderful example of that education, having gotten his environmental studies degree a few years back. And many of you might know that he is and has been a seasoned champion of health and an acclaimed best-selling author, speaker, and social entrepreneur. Christopher's commitment and consciousness have been instrumental in spreading global awareness about environmental health, an increasingly important topic. In his role as CEO of the nonprofit Healthy Child, Healthy World, Christopher led a coalition of doctors, global retailers, and notable celebrities to drive awareness of the emerging science that would help ignite a consumer movement to demand a safer, healthier, non-toxic products. Christopher then founded and built The Honest Company in 2012 with Jessica Alba, his partner in crime, the paradigm-shifting non-toxic consumer brand of skincare, home cleaning, and beauty products that delivered upon the principles of purpose, innovation, and social responsibility. Most recently, in 2019, last year, Christopher has launched a new company, a science-driven therapeutic botanical brand called Prima, to bridge the gap between healthcare and wellness and unlock CBD to consumers with clinical validation, industry-defining standards, and radical transparency. He has authored numerous pieces on environmental health and sustainability and the natural marketplace for national publications, including People Magazine, Huffington Post, USA Today, CNN, Medium, and Fast Company. Christopher sits on the board of directors of Mount Sinai Hospital and received numerous recognitions, including Elle Magazine's Green Award in 2007, the New York Times bestseller nonfiction book list in 2009, and the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015. Without further ado, I want to hand this over to Christopher, who will give you his view of his journey after UCSB, which has kind of been a very non-traditional journey. And I really think he will have some very important stories to tell that show that it's not always the straight line between 2 points that is the best, but sometimes it takes us in different directions, but ultimately to a very successful career. So Christopher is a graduate of the Environmental Studies program at UCSB. He's also the father of 4 children, Luke, Evie, Poppy, and Josephine. And he lives with his wife, Jessica, in Santa Monica, California. So here we go. Christopher, take it away.
Pierre, thank you so much. What a warm introduction, and really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to everyone. You know, as we talked about, or as you introed me, you talked about a journey, and I think that's what careers really are about. It's really about unlocking that passion and that inner purpose. And a lot of it stems from what you learned or who you connected with or how you unpacked who you were as an undergrad in those incredibly formative years. And I came from the East Coast to Santa Barbara and out in California, specifically for the environmental sciences program that started in 1969 and 1970, built on that concept of bringing together cross-functional, interdisciplinary facets of the university, really as a collective to ideate and conceptualize and teach on how do we transform the next generations and future generations of environmental health leaders. And that happened, and that was initially spurred upon and the outbirth of the horrible tragedy of 1969, when black tar and oil was lapping up on the shores of Santa Barbara because of the platform derrick leak in '69. And look, we all love the shores of Santa Barbara because we love the smell, we love the natural oil seepage, but this was unnatural, and this was man-made, and this was artificial, and this was preventable. And there was what I was most struck with, because I don't think you find your passion. I think you find avenues, but your passion really finds you. And coming into Santa Barbara and understanding the beautiful collision of science and nature and innovation and innovative thinking, and having those academics really drive that moral commitment, I was so struck with that. I was struck with this intense, the intense few trying to excite and alert and alarm and educate the lukewarm many. And I think that's what we're all, especially in the sciences side and the environmental health side and the careers that we choose, we are, with our knowledge base, we are trying to impact and transform legacy thinking. And the University of Santa Barbara, of University of California, Santa Barbara does that so well. And I love what I achieved there and the course of my time there. I happened to transfer in, and then I spent 4 years there. So I was a 5th-year senior. And during that 5th year, what I was most impressed with was this concept of understanding the science and going deeper into the academic side of it, and how the environment is not somewhere out there. It's really a part of us. The nature is within us. And if it's in you in a positive way, and you're reflective of it, as we are doing massive research in the last 2 decades around the microbiome and bacterial and the biome community within our bodies and our guts and our brains and across our systems. And it can be in a negative way in the sense that it's in a body burden, and toxicants and chemicals and residual solvents and petrochemicals that are man-made and synthetics are actually resolving in our fats and our brain tissues and really causing harm. And it was at Santa Barbara that I really first starting to understand how those two things come together. So in the environment and human health, and how that's really a study of conversation that needs to be talked about. And so if impacting and informing and doing this paradigm legacy shifting was about educating and about inspiring the lukewarm many, ultimately, you only do that through credibility and trust and narrative. And for me, then who's the better storyteller, and who can impact story and the brand story and the story of the intelligence of story is really how you shift and how you change. And so I was passionate about, again, the data, the science, the research, the medical understanding of how chemicals and toxicants impact the body. But I wanted to be a broadcasting agent. I wanted to be a platform and a springboard of knowledge and access and content for people. And that's why I joined a nonprofit that had, its charter was to impact parents, specifically parents, because if we look at across the continuum of environmental health and just health and wellness, we're under, right now, more than ever, we're under a global consciousness of understanding of human health, the fragility and the vulnerability of humans to threats, and how to be proactive and preventative in that stance. And that stance that really ultimately we get to choose, and the lifestyles that we choose. And so this nonprofit was to educate and sometimes alarm with fear and through rich content and data, but it was to showcase that there are chemicals all around us and that there is no guardian at the gate. So brands, consumer products companies can put and infuse and build through their formulations and sciences. They can put any ingredients in there, and there's no pre-market safety testing or data that requires them to have transparency and accountability to what those ingredients are. So by the time that I went to Capitol Hill and within state capitals, worked with major retailers, Whole Foods, Target, worked with major brands at the time, and I was just appalled with the data and appalled with the lack of understanding. And so this is early 2000s. I graduated in 97. And in early 2000s, this is like the emergence and the sophistication of the natural movement that was unpacking and unfolding. And it was fascinating that I saw a few small disruptive brands being that force for good and unpacking trust and building trust within their portfolios, but there wasn't one brand, there wasn't one source. And so I wrote a book. I brought illustrious doctors and some notables on board. I had connected in a very kismet and amazing way with Michelle Obama before President Obama had even launched his campaign and his presidency. And so I had voices and trying to humanize the experience. But what I found most frustrating, again, is if we're seeing massive, especially now more than ever, massive distrust of institutions, certainly within medicine and certainly within the dysfunctional set within Washington right now, that brand platforms had such an opportunity to shift outside of marketplace. They had to shift public consciousness. And so I wanted to build a trust portfolio. I wanted to build a master brand that stood on values and principles and the integrity of the science, but did it in a way that was accessible and easy and friendly. And it was found globally across retail markets and also within a direct-to-consumer platform. So early nights and weekends over a course of 2.5 years, built this platform, The Honest Company. It was really around non-toxic performance, but it was about impacting and changing a conversation. And it was very intentional that that I chose to put the word honest inside the and company because it was provocative. It was a challenge. It was a bullseye on our chest. It was a ask to hold yourself accountable and have a level of ethical sensibility, but it was a challenge to the marketplace, because ultimately what I was seeing, I mean, that at the time of the launch of the Honest Company in 2012, Johnson's No More Tears baby shampoo that was sitting on shelf for $279 had 5 known class 1 carcinogens in it. So in their ingredients list, 5 known, class 1, known carcinogens. So that was appalling and needed to shift. So the power stance of the Honest Company was really to be a place of peace, of standard, of ethical performance, and an ethos of commitment towards better, safer, cleaner, and ultimately more natural and more healthful. I happen to sit on the board of a few academic and medical institutions, Mount Sinai most notably, and it was in 2009 that I heard about this new transforming phytonutrient molecule that had been researched and found in Israel in the late 80s, early 90s, known as cannabinoids. And I was so fascinated by this emerging science that 98% of all doctors still to this day don't know about. This discovery of this new body system, right? That we just discovered in the last 25 years. We just understood that the brain has its own lymphatic system, that the body has this new endocannabinoid system, it's called, it's named after the molecules that it actually interacts with. And so this endocannabinoid system, it operates as a master regulatory network. It's specifically aimed to create a network of balance and homeostasis. So our bodies are constantly under stress, and there is stress that impacts both our mental self, our physical self. Certainly socially, we're all in a stressed environment right now, but there was no real data and vocabulary around what this endocannabinoid system was doing. And so Mount Sinai in 2009, this is 3 years prior to me launching the Honest Company, was still trying to understand what cannabinoids do in the body. And now we know cannabinoids have very direct impact and connectivity into our pain receptors, to our ability to modulate our mood and emotion, tons of connectivity into our endocrine function and pain perception. So there are 2 ways to manage pain in the body: cannabinoids and opioids. And so we understand that, and sadly, the opioid epidemic that's happening right now, but anything is really pseudoscience until you get that reproducible data, meets vocabulary, meets understanding the precise mechanisms inside the body. And so again, being the geek around the science, but understanding and desiring the humanizing, the harmonizing, the amplification, and making it more concise and palatable to the public. Again, that the psychology and the communication of behavioral change that I was so excited about, that I just went full, deep dive into it. And I thought it was extremely unique that, again, in the world of environmental science and environmental health, that the world of plant sciences, these nutraceuticals and cosmeceuticals that we were understood, these functional botanicals, were actually bridging the gap between healthcare and wellness, and that you were really unifying. You were finding a unification of healthcare and wellness, as well as some of these other tangential categories like ingestibles and supplements and beauty. And so the emerging platform that was being discovered, specifically, I was building the Honest Company and really helping people protect and helping people prevent disease and illness. But now here's an emerging science that was all around getting people to prosper and optimize their health, because these cannabinoids are impacted or there to regulate stress, but many of us are deficient in cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are natively produced in the body, male and female. Females actually pass cannabinoids on to their babies and children in utero, as well as through breast milk. And so they're broadly, there's a lot of mystery, and there's a lot of emerging data and science and numerous studies that show about their transformative impact, again, around mood modulation, skin, sleep, pain perception. And what fascinated me most was, outside of the cellular biology of it, is you've got a category. If you're sourcing from cannabinoids, or if you're sourcing cannabinoids from cannabis is incredibly stigmatized. Ton of gray market humans. You've got federal and global regulations that are preventing it from emerging into a consumer product or a market that is not under federal law and under mandate of a jurisdiction of imprisonment. And so there was a tidal shift, and still is, around the understanding of what cannabis is and isn't, and its positive and negative impacts. But cannabinoids, there are 120 of them. One of them happens to be THC, that has intoxication and euphoric effects. All the other ones are around wellness. And so hemp is a sober botanical cousin of marijuana. So we were wanting to focus on specifically hemp. Take away the high, take away the fun and intoxication, and focus on the wellness and the well-being side of the plant. And so what I learned through the data and the science, and understanding how these molecules impact the brain and central nervous system and the immune function, that what you learn and what we're finding out now is, after a year and a half into this business that we've built, is that the world of education and the world of content still is king in any emerging new nascent category. So we've produced over 150 pieces of content. We're really adding a sense of credibility and trust, and science-backed, evidence-led communications, and minimizing those barriers, and really deciphering myth from reality, and really conditioning the market. So much like we did at The Honest Company, you have to teach, you have to add, again, the credibility and trust, but you have to do with always a layer of legitimacy and credibility. And that's what going back to Santa Barbara, that's what I learned. It was always grounded in and not the angular, and not the overly the edge case of science. It was the repeatable data. It was the known and not the emerging. And it was really, we were talking, and again, sitting in class in 1993, 94, we were talking about global warming. We were talking about climate change and the shifting crisis that was going to unfold. Now we are living it, sadly. And so what Santa Barbara was incredibly imperative and incredibly well equipped in, was to do it in a way that was always grounded in the advanced innovation, but always grounded in meeting the consumer base, and meeting the legislative base, and meeting the change and the legacy that was necessary at the right time and face with the space with the right amount of content. And so with Prima now, it's been a true honor and privilege to again launch another company, and doing this in a much more intentional fashion around growth. One of the big learnings at The Honest Company was it was an impact brand. So we were a challenger brand, disruptive brand. And it was in a very forceful, impactful way. And oftentimes that puts you out, again, intentional target. And for this one, it is around a lot more peace of mind conversation, and a lot around creating standards. Prima just launched a global partnership with Sephora LVMH in creating a set of standards. Ours are much higher than theirs, but it's getting a huge global retailer to say, hey, this is how and why we're bringing cannabinoids and CBD in our product. This is how they impact the skin. This is how they impact the musculature of the body. This is how we're going to source and how we're going to articulate that level of transparency and purity and safety and potency. And because ultimately, and again, this is also one of the pieces at Santa Barbara that I love was it was when you find your passion, when you unpack your passion, it's about being unrelenting and obsessive about it and being a control enthusiast about it. And I have a daughter here. Hi, I'm just on a live chat.
Do you want a little cookie dough? How are you through the day?
Great, thank you. Welcome to quarantine. She's just in the next room in school. That again, it's the passion piece, but I think it's the beautiful balance of integrity and passion and levels of commitment. So I'm going to open it up for some questions. I'm going to encourage some questions. I'm going to reach out to y'all and see if you have specific questions. I'm going to look at some of the chat and see if there's anything specific that is impacting you. I could ask questions. You can ask questions about Honest, certainly at Santa Barbara, on the NGO space and the world of environmental health on the technical side, if we want to go into that, or we could talk about Prima and the cannabinoid side. But open for questions and commentary too, because I'm really interested to see from the alumni side. I've done quite a few alumni events. I did a specific talk to the Environmental Sciences Department in up in Santa Barbara right before quarantine. In fact, I was actually there for the 50th anniversary, which was great, which was right before quarantine too. But it was getting back to the campus and seeing it change and evolve, yet be the same, is always such a true pleasure and delight.
Christopher, can you tell us your story real quick about living in your VW box?
Yeah, so that's funny. So I came from Santa Barbara, came from California, or to California from the East Coast, and from a group of 4 boys in my family. I was number 3, and my dad had 2 other boys in private school on the East Coast, and so I happened to get a full ride academic and athletic scholarship to a small liberal arts school back east. And he said, "Great, take that." And it was almost, the choice was made. It was free school. And I wasn't pleased. And so I said, "Dad, I'm going to California. I'm going to Santa Barbara. I'm like incredibly passionate about this school." And he said, "Great, if you leave, you pay." Awesome, I will pay my way. And then I got defiant, and then I was pissed. So I got 1 year, I had to do 1 year out of state. And then, from in-state to out of state, at that time was out of state was like $15K. In-state was, we all know, it was like $2,000 to $3,000. But I had to take 3 jobs, and I was on the ultimate Frisbee team, which took a ton of time, and then my studies. And so I was just getting by, barely getting by. And one of my friends had his house on 6881 DP, the second and last house, Oceanside, Del Playa. And it was going into my junior year. And I said, "Hey, I can't afford to live with you because I can't spend $750 for a room, but I'm going to buy a Volkswagen van and I'm going to park it in your driveway. And I'm going to pay you $250 a month, and I'm going to use your bathroom, and I'm going to use your kitchen." And he was like, "Great, that's an awesome idea." So I lived in my van for two years, just over actually 2.5 years, and paid him. And ultimately we were doing Sierra Nevada keg trades instead of paying cash. I'd cook meals. Oftentimes I couldn't pay because I was behind, but these guys were incredibly liberal and generous to me. And I lived on that bluff, underneath that cypress tree. If anyone, I'm sure everyone on this campus or on this call has been underneath that tree, and I've gone down those stairs at the end of DP. So I had that view, and I'm fighting my way professionally and personally to get that view one day back. But it was humbling. It was socially and emotionally transforming in a lot of ways, but it's such an experience that my parents thought I was crazy, and so did my friends, but ultimately worked out for the best.
Thanks for sharing. We've got a question from Diane in the chat.
Oh, great. Biggest challenge is getting data and research out to your audience. That's a great question because a lot of the research and in medicine and academia don't like to share their specific studies, and brands have a hard time driving attention back to, on the content side, driving a click or 2 clicks away from that content, because then you are, it's called a structure function claim. You're making a claim against your product if you're linking it back to a study that could show a level of association to a body benefit or a sense of healing or repair or relief or specific function in the body. So connecting, for instance, cannabinoid research to mood modulation and driving attention to that study. So a lot of the work that you have to do is very, it's rich in compliance and legal and regulatory affairs, and never getting over your skis on some of those claims. Some of the sophomore brands in the cannabinoid space, we're seeing an eruption. They call it a green rush that's going on in cannabis, THC, and also specifically in CBD. And people are just over their skis and making claims on all this relief. And you just can't do that. It's just not, number one, it's not legal. Number two, it's not responsible. Number three, it's not ethical when it comes to consumer content. So it's a challenge. I find that there is incredible networks in the data and research side of institutions. Mayo connected to Cleveland, connected to Harvard, connected to Santa Barbara, connected to Irvine, connected to Berkeley. I mean, they are very, very, there is a scarcity around resources, but if there's a proclivity in a certain subject matter, they lean in big and have a lot of cross-pollination. So incredibly pleased with that work and trying to, again, bridge the gap between what academics have and then doing the translation and concise communications work and it to bring the level grounded in credibility, but also connecting it back to a consumer palette that is like right there. They're scanning, they're reading, they need things in bullets. They don't have time to dive into the science. So it's a continued challenge. I think we're experiencing some of the challenge here at Prima because there's so much stigma. I mean, Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia in 1620 mandated anyone who had a farm over 5 acres plant hemp. And so hemp had in the history of this country and its tremendous, like thousands and thousands and thousands of usages for clothing, for ropes, for industrial usage, for hemp seed oil to run lamps. Its connection into the community. Oh, sorry, we got a dog. Its connection into the community is remarkably transformative. But sorry, I got a dog. That was not my dog. I have no idea how that dog got in here. That was my mother-in-law's dog. Anyway, the use of telling the story of something that was good for thousands of years and then went bad based on some criminalization of a plant to now it's good again, or being a conversation and paradigm shifting communications challenge. So it's really, really fascinating. We're still trying to unpack it, but I'm a believer in the power of the feminine and the power of the female consumer to transform marketplaces based on her. And I mean, look, we all are masculine and feminine in us, and the group of parents that is most activated to be generational thinkers and act upon the responsibility for being responsible to the future. And now more than ever, right? We are seeing it impact us more on the sustainability side, on the petrochemical and plastics world, and when it comes to packaging and packaged goods, when it comes to carbon output and how we are running our personal lives and how we're running our businesses and how that's impacting climate shifts and the carbon load of our atmosphere. So the work that needs to be done, especially activating the female, because what she is doing, specifically the mom, is she is taking care of next generation and then past generation. But that past generation, she's got a tremendous buying power and impact on the community, up to $750 trillion of impact. In fact, just the woman between 26 and 56. So harvesting and harnessing and activating them as being a transformative force in the planet, for me, has the most power and potential to really shift this planet and shift the possibility of tomorrow. Gaucho here. Alyssa, I'm going to take a question. All women found a sustainable marketplace. Great. I'm just right, thematically in tune. A lot of research around partnerships. What do you look for in a partnership? You know, across my career, I've looked for a few things, but I would say certainly access to a different point of view and a different collection on audience. Yes, there needs to be a like-mindedness on principles and values and how you see what you're doing. But in a business, I mean, getting down to business tax, I mean, a lot of us are in the business of transaction, and transaction, it doesn't always have to be monetary. And as we are seeing now more than ever, that the transaction of emotion, the transaction of trust, the transaction of these soft relationship pieces of credibility, of connection, of awareness, of community. Those are the assets within business now more than ever. And so I look for someone who's got a bolder point of view that can either amplify or give me greater access to something that I haven't thought about when it comes to our brand or relationship. And you have to have a lens of risk, and know where you are on your tolerance scale when it comes to risk. And I think great partnerships really push the bounds of just being risky enough that it feels a little bit uncomfortable. And so I love that type of understanding within a good partnership. Certainly when it comes to two brands or two organizations combining. For instance, how's that coming to life? Give me a real life example. So Prima, over the month of November, there's Giving Tuesday. So the brand is going to be giving a certain percentage of all sales to a nonprofit. The nonprofit that we're choosing this year is called the Loveland Foundation. The Loveland Foundation is doing direct service to BIPOC women and their mental health. We know generational trauma is a thing. We understand how now more than ever, there's a moral and inhuman and cultural renaissance and reckoning that's happening before us. And brands need to have a point of view there. And so from a partnership perspective, I'm looking but it's directly connected and weaves and beautifully dovetails into the Prima philosophy of if the greatest epidemic that we're all facing right now, I mean, you could live as healthy. Here's what I know. You could live as healthy as you possibly can. Kale salads, green juices, lower your EMF exposure in your home, clean air in your house, great water. If you are under a onslaught of stress, emotional, physical, social stress, your body will become diseased, and you will not have a healthy life or a healthful life or a life that's well. And so stress is the thing we need to manage. We need to understand it. We understand how it's manifesting in the body, and we need to understand how to control it. And that's why cannabinoid research is so interesting, because you have a system inside your body to manage stress. Its sole function is to act as a balance and homeostasis and synergy engine in the body, which is fascinating. It's the largest cellular receptor network inside the entire body. It connects every major system. So how that brings back to partnerships is that in partnering with the Loveland Foundation, giving direct access to mental health and how we manage our own mental mindset, our mental approaches, our ability to be emotionally, not physically, but emotionally resilient I think those conversations and the awareness of your emotional resilience now more than ever is going to be a big topic of conversation, because it's the mandate to be clean, healthy, safe, non-toxic. Like that's the mandate in consumer products. If you're picking up a product, like turn that label around. If you're not seeing ingredients, or if there is a list of unpronounceables, like ditch it. There's a safer alternative out there. But how is that laddering up to not wellness, which is really a silo of physical, but well-being, which is physical, mental, and emotional. And that's a broader based conversation that's much more holistic in its fashion. Okay, questions from, you're welcome, Melissa. What actions have you found valuable in conveying the message behind sustainable products and practices when sometimes cost is, I think that's a cost, the cost hurdle is becoming less of a factor, yet it still is a factor, understood and aware. And the conversation that I think has yet to be really unpacked in the world of more sustainable goods is the conversation around durability and choosing more durable goods and well-built goods, but fewer of them. So it's the fewer better things concept that I think is a really fascinating, that it just hasn't come into the zeitgeist and the mainstream conversation yet. So it's like we're taught to spend and consume and be voracious consumers because it keeps the economy going. But you can buy something that's more well built, and last a longer time, right? What's the data point that will make your head spin and make you appalled is that 90% of goods that are coming out of a Walmart are consumed and find their way to a landfill. We know recycling is not working now, guys. We were talking about that in Santa Barbara in '93. That 90% of all goods after 5 years end up in a landfill that come out of Walmart. Again, not causing shadow on Walmart, causing a halo of reconsideration on today's consumer. What are you buying? Why are you buying it? Do you need it? Is it durable enough to last you a long time? Questions, more questions coming in. Sometimes healthier products can be the gate affordability conversation, best way to industry to come back to that. So there are some recommendations there. How do we shift the dialogue around durability and not the overconsumptiveness that we are all taught? Journey, writing the first book to Healthy Child, into the Honest Company. The hurdle from going from the NGO world and the do good world was not as bad as I thought it would be. It was much more of an obvious rocket ship, but we built the Honest Company like a nonprofit, very intentionally. Again, it was a social impact brand. It was B Corp. It was built to cause. It built on a set of values, and now these are missions and purpose. Now these are conversations, but 8-9 years ago, that wasn't part of like the dialogue of brand architecture. It's only in very small elite communities. So now I would say that it wasn't as bad. I think that the human side of any business is the most important thing that I undervalued early. And humans are incredibly fickle, and they're incredibly, especially on the business side, as we've heard time and time again. This is why this pandemic is so fascinating and disruptive. And we're seeing so many major global players across the spectrum talk about what is it going to be like? What's the new work reality going to be like? because fickle being, we need to connect. We need to feel a kismet relationship and a level of humanity and connection with our peers and with those that are leading the company and those that are setting the vision and the pipeline and the projects. And the synchronicity of that and or the lack thereof is being disrupted. And now we're in this 2D environment. And so I think that how we imagine what the hybrid workplace going forward is going to be incredibly interesting. So, but that going back, I think if you build your businesses, getting back to your question, if you build your business on what your passion projects are, or what your values are, it doesn't feel like a big stretch going from industry to industry or NGO to a for-profit. But again, we didn't build it like a for-profit. We had a triple bottom line: people, profit, planet, and really prioritizing those things that were going to amplify the people and planet piece more than your internal stakeholders. Other questions that may exist out there?
Christopher, I have a practical question for you. So tying back on the Honest Company, tying back these questions about affordability and durability and thinking about the future. So we're in this pandemic. Everyone is clamoring for Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer and throwing their disposable masks in the rivers. And everybody has to get takeout. So it's all in all these plastic containers. So where are we going with this? And, you know, if people are just feeling like I have to wipe everything down, I don't care what I'm doing it with, what's that going to look like in the future for us?
That's a really great question. And I think it's now more than ever, we have to be sensitive to, and we are more sensitized to, again, the vulnerability of us, and then how do we manage a lifestyle and a life that is clean, it prevents virus and disease and illness and the airborne threats. And so I think what you're seeing is like a consumer shift, and you're seeing marketplaces like being transformed overnight. I mean, I've never seen so many masks, and the amazing innovators come up with masks so quickly. And so it's fascinating. But do I think that is going to last? I think it's going to last for a little bit. And I think it's how that comes through social norms and how we relate as humans, but how do we caretake our world and our immediacy? I hope that we can get back to a place of trusting the science and data more, of understanding what precautions are reasonable and what aren't, of getting to the understanding that we get to determine through some habits and some lifestyles and what we feed our bodies and how we sleep and how much water we drink and what are we putting on and around us, that is really impacting, yes, global mindset and stress, but it's also impacting your immune function. Our bodies are equipped through millions and millions of years of evolution to manage these threats, right? So is this threat is real? Is our body able to and equipped to manage it? Absolutely. But if you're a vulnerable population with comorbid health issues, you're going to be at a higher risk. So hopefully everyone's like getting outside more. As you said, Karen, so lovely and humbly, or I'm getting outside more. I'm taking care of my body more. I'm not commuting as much. Like, do the things, the basic. There's many, many, many basic things you can do to make yourself more resilient and more healthy and more healthful and more capable of managing this virus. And I wish the conversation was less prophylactic and oh my God, there's a fire burning, which there is, to, okay, let's also think like, okay, immediate, but also what else can I do? We've been in quarantine for 7 months. People could have, again, transformed their lives in 7 months and really shifted their own health outcomes and their blood and like you could do a lot. So I hope the conversation starts going there. Certainly, the responsible parties with the platform need to start talking prevention and proactive management steps in that direction as well.
Thank you for that. That's a good place to end, but I'm going to give you an opportunity for some parting thoughts before we wrap up.
Look, I'm incredibly grateful for the Santa Barbara community and all that I've learned, and again, it's not what you've learned in the book necessarily there, although that's incredibly helpful and helps you with your technical side of your careers. It's really the collection and the aggregation of a diverse community that cares a whole lot, that is safe and honorable, and seeks to transform next generations, that I think was so impactful for me, and that not only showcased and demonstrated, but also asked, like, and reflected the mirror back on me. What are you going to do? You have a responsibility and you have a duty, and now what are you going to do? And I love that question and that prompt and that request. And now more than ever, we all have to do something. So hopefully people are choosing to be in service of others and not only themselves, especially for the future of our kids and next generations and beyond.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to our audience for being here and for your great questions. I'm so excited to have Christopher reconnected to UCSB. My funny story about this is that back in 2017, I was working with some alumni volunteers in LA, and they were putting together an entrepreneur panel, and they were rounding up entrepreneurs from UCSB doing different things. And when we sent the invitation out, I got a follow-up email from Christopher saying, "Oh, I graduated from UCSB and I'm an entrepreneur. How can I get involved?"
Yeah.
And I looked at the logo on his email signature and it said The Honest Company. And I was thinking to myself, you didn't found The Honest Company, Jessica Alba founded The Honest Company. So I go online, go to The Honest Company's website, and I'm like, well, what do you know? Here he is. So, since then, Christopher has come to campus to speak. Multiple times, he's got rain checks for commencement speeches. He is always here when we need him to connect with alums. So super excited to have you participating in this, Christopher, and I know that we'll see you again. Definitely.
Yeah, and I always leave my cell phone or my email. I really appreciate and encourage and am responsive to questions, comments, relationship, network building. So 310-849-5093, or my email is Christopher@prima, PRIMA.co. Reach out anytime, here for everyone. And again, Karen, thank you so much for being receptive and giving me a platform to talk about my journey and hopefully inspire and shoo away some dogs at during the process of it all.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, you'll get a follow-up email from us with a survey. Just let us know what future topics you want to hear about in the future. We will also be reminding everyone to sign up for gauchonetwork.com, which is our LinkedIn style networking platform. So again, if you're doing something awesome, if you know alums who are doing something awesome, if you want to connect with alumni in your industry or your location, jump on gauchonetwork.com. Thousands of alums and students are in there connecting, mentoring students, giving out advice, making connections. So, we're excited to be doubling down on that and gathering our Gaucho community there, especially in this time of virtual networking. So hopefully we'll see folks at more expo sessions over the next couple of days. We'll see you in Gaucho Network for more networking. And yeah, thank you for coming.
And Karen, just as a last parting word, I see Curtis prompting me accordingly. I was part of the Santa Barbara Black Tide, and so go Black Tide.
Yeah, ultimate Frisbee.
Very important. We happened to win during my time there 2 national championships in '96 and '97. That was another reason why I stayed.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you soon.
Awesome.